Hello and welcome to Higher or Lower, the football preview show brought to you by SpreadX, Sporting Index and oddschecker. In this show, we look ahead to the weekend's football in the Championship and, of course, in the Premier League. And we use the spread betting markets and find the midpoint to predict if we think they will go higher or lower than those set out by SpreadX and Sporting Index. It is, of course, Easter weekend this weekend. In the EFL, that means we've got games on Good Friday and on Easter Monday. But in the Premier League, it means we've got games on Saturday and Sunday. So 4 days.
Yeah, and then midweek after that.
4 days of football, and then midweek after that, it's Jack Wright joining me here. And we've got Dan Worth from WhoScored on my right as well. Massive weekend of football. We had a week off last week because of the international break, which not loads happened. You know, if you're a Wales fan, look away now and all that. But you sent me a graphic. Suddenly, you and I are level on points.
Yeah.
Even though I'm pretty sure I got 8 out of 8 like 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
And I was ill, so I can't have lost any ground there.
Yeah,
so.
well, I don't know. You have to take it up with the spreadsheet, but you know what it is now going into the last few games. Yeah. Nice and tight.
I don't know if I trust your settling ability.
Mate, I'm happy to share the spreadsheet.
I think we're going to have to go through all.
Take it out of the spreadsheet. I don't know how you do that.
Maybe he does the spreadsheet.
I know.
So surely I have to take it out with Dan.
I'll make it in Google.
I'm happy with it. That's fine.
It's
just cool.
I think this could be a fixing scandal for the ages. It'll be a Netflix documentary, Bad Sport, in a few years. Right, we're going to kick off. There's loads of games. I think we've got 4 televised EFL games on Friday. 1 in League 2, 3 in the Championship. We're not doing the League 2 games, sadly. I was hoping I was going to be in there, Wrexham, Mansfield. But we're going to go with the 8 o'clock kickoff. So Watford against Leeds. The interesting thing about this game is, of course, Leeds go into this game top of the Championship on goal difference, having played a game more than Leicester and 1 point clear of Ipswich. But Leicester play in the early game. Ipswich play in the 5:30 game. So at kickoff here, Leeds will know what their opposition have done. They could be first still. They could be second. They could be third at kickoff. But they go to Watford. We're looking at the total goals line here. So this is 2.8 to sell with SpreadX, 3 to buy. So 2.9 is the midpoint. With SpreadX here for total goals, Watford versus Leeds. We're going higher or lower. 3, 2, 1.
What? You know what? I'm surprised.
I'm surprised.
As are you.
Yeah,
as are you.
2.9 as well. So it's if there are 3 goals, you're making 0.1 profit. We've all gone against. We've all definitely backed quite a big odds against one here. Jack, you tell me why.
Can I pass it over to Dan, please?
All right.
Yeah.
You don't want to do it?
No.
Oh God, there's a bit of pressure on me now to say something meaningful.
What's just happened?
Yeah. No, it's fine. I've not got much on this other than I know that I'm normally the one that only talks about International Week, and obviously I've been plotting my little graph of where people have been going this week. So
was that little plane?
Little plane. Yeah. Slightly wonky winged one, but don't want to be on that. But so you two can.
But also, like on that with your international break thing, Leeds' international players, quite a lot of them are Welsh.
Yes.
And so not only have they had quite a taxing physical back-to-back game, like the joys of winning the first round, and then of course losing on penalties over 120 minutes.
Yeah.
So like knackered physically, but also probably mentally pretty drained as well.
Absolutely, and Dan James obviously was the one that missed that final penalty, so him especially, and the other guys as well. And Connor Roberts limped off in that. We've started to wait internationals, haven't we? So
there we go.
Yeah, and Junior Firpo, Dominican Republic, tough gig admittedly, but he had to go there. For his fixture, and then Aruba as well after that. So and played some serious minutes there. So
lucky him.
Yeah, indeed. Yeah, it's tough. It's tough. But I think he was playing still like early hours of Wednesday morning. So it's such a very tight turnaround. Gurev as
Presumably that's our time rather than their game kicking off.
Yeah, I believe so.
Okay.
Yeah, I believe so. Yeah. Both midfield pair, Gurev and Camara, both involved in internationals as well, so
Jorginho Ruto had an injury doubt as well.
Yeah, he had surgery, I think, in the break.
Hernia surgery. Although Patrick Bamford not getting a call up for the England squad, so he's fresh for this one.
Yeah.
Dan?
Well, I wanted to start off by saying I genuinely think this is the hardest pick of today's show. I'm just going to say that now, because Leeds are pretty good, aren't they? Going forward, and they don't really.
There has been some rumours they might break the Championship points record this season.
Yeah, I'm happy to peter them out. There you go. No, it doesn't work again, does it? But they won't. They definitely won't.
I think if you say that, you have to be called Peter, and then it would work.
Yeah.
And it'd be like a word.
Back to the drawing board with that one.
Yeah.
One day, one episode, I'll get that right.
Fine.
Pick a Peterborough game.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, mate, you've done the hard work for me. No teams conceded fewer goals on the road than Leeds this season, so that bodes quite nicely for lower. I'm slightly worried because Watford are pretty poor at the moment, and at home they're on a terrible run, but they do tend to score. And obviously, if Watford score here, then the 3-line is looking touch and go, because I'm imagining we all agree that Leeds are going to win, right?
I would think so, yeah. I mean, yeah.
So I'm basically, as I was a couple of weeks ago, thinking Leeds win 2-0.
Yeah, I tend to agree. I mean, Watford's run of form at home is horrific, as you say. They haven't won in their last 9 at home, and they've drawn 3 of those. So they've lost 6 of their last 9. Only one of those was to 0, but they've only scored 1 goal in the other 5. So it's not like they're kind of free scoring. Tom Cleverley is currently the man in charge of Watford, trying to turn this interim job into a job that will probably last about a week longer than a normal interim job if he gets it full time. They got a 1-0 win at Birmingham last time, but they weren't great. It was like a proper new manager bounce variance thing where they put in another pretty poor performance, but the luck went their way.
They conceded 27 shots that day as well.
Birmingham missed loads of chances, and it was just fortunate they got their noses in front. Leeds have won 10 of their last 13 games to 0, and if I was to have a fixed odds bet in this game, it would be Leeds to win to 0. And if that's the case, then am I thinking what's more likely? 1-0, 2-0 or 3-0 and above? And it's got to be 1-0, 2-0, especially because you're getting the 0-0 on side as well if they do keep a clean sheet. So I agree, it's awkward because it's a 2.9 line. Like, it goes from being a 2.9, it's you don't really like it, it's one of the hardest ones, to if it was 3.1, it would probably be my strongest one on the whole list.
Yeah, I agree.
So I'm still happy to go lower. Newcastle hosting West Ham is next up. West Ham in a better patch of form. Newcastle, the entertainers in the Premier League right now. They are the favourites of spread X in the supremacy markets. This is the total amount of goals the favourites will win by. If you go higher here then at 0.6, then this is a Newcastle win. Lower would be West Ham or a draw. 3, 2, 1. Oh, you guys both went before me there. That was bizarre. I'm going higher. Why I want to watch that back. I thought it was like 3, 2, and then you both went.
I was ready.
Was it a false start?
Yeah.
So Dan, you're the only one who went for lower here.
Yeah. Well, I just think Newcastle form is quite patchy, and particularly at home, it's not amazing.
It's weird, their form.
Yeah.
Because it's better than it feels like it should be.
Yeah, I agree. But 1 win in the last 5, home including 2 draws against Bournemouth and Luton. Like, neither of those teams are right up the top.
And then before that, was it 7 wins in a row?
Yeah, that's the thing. But we don't like to look at historical data.
And you can probably that's not historical data.
I'm winding you up.
What was the last home game? Let's go as less historical as possible.
I'm assuming that's the one of the last 4 that is not on my list, because 3 of the last 4 have ended in a draw between these two, which is basically my main. As always with the supremacy market, getting the draw on side is a big plus for me.
Okay.
I found it very, very tough to call, and therefore I was possibly thinking the same thing as you. If I find it really tough to call, get the draw on side, but I think just that both these sides are just really inconsistent. Although they're up, especially West Ham are like 7th, aren't they? And that, I find that so hard to believe. But they just pull out some strange wins, but then throw in some terrible defeats. You know, you look at the games they've won. They won at the Emirates. They beat Arsenal away, and they've beaten Spurs away and Brighton away, and they lost 5-0 at Fulham, and they've also lost at Nottingham Forest and Brentford. It's just what West Ham are you going to get, and to a certain extent what Newcastle you're going to get. I just came down on the side that I think Newcastle's home form can be good enough, and I think just with that little bit of a reset, and I think the pressure's on a little bit as far as the results are concerned. They lost the last couple away from home, haven't they? They got knocked out of the FA Cup by Man City with a bit of a turgid performance. I just feel that, again, home crowd, they will just have enough to edge this one, but it is a tight one. And I just think that West Ham conceded enough chances, and Newcastle's got the players to take advantage of that.
Yeah, that's the key thing for me is West Ham's defensive record. Like, they've only kept 1 clean sheet on the road this season. That was at Arsenal, which was just a kind of bizarre game. But Newcastle, even when they're at their poorest, and even when they're dropping points, they're scoring so many goals, like 4 against Luton, 2 against Bournemouth, 2 against Man City. And I just think they've got the attacking power here to do West Ham, basically. So, I mean, I wouldn't be overly strong on it, but on the balance of things, I think a Newcastle win is the likeliest result, and probably a better than 50-50 chance in my mind. On to a game then between 2 teams that do not like each other. Aston Villa and Wolverhampton Wanderers. We're looking at the bookings market here. This is tough. 54 is the midpoint with SpreadX. Paul Tierney is on the whistle.
Yeah.
Who, well, we'll get into this in a second. Are we going higher or are we going lower? 3, 2, 1. Oh. Yeah, like, obviously, in terms of the referee booking, it's suboptimal.
Yeah.
Right? It's not ideal. He doesn't give loads of bookings. I think that'll be factored into the price to an extent. Like, I think if you were going to get a Down England on this, it would be a fair bit higher than the 54. When you consider this is a game between two sides where there is no love lost, and Aston Villa have the third worst discipline record, as per WhoScored, in the league with 76 yellows and 2 reds. Wolves, the 6th worst in the league with 68 yellows and 3 reds. I can't really picture a way that this game, and especially if anyone watched Raul Gomez's performance for Brazil against England on last weekend, how this doesn't descend into a real scrap. To the extent that, like, and I often think refs like Tierney, when they manage games, when they referee games that are derbies, they often kind of go out of their way not to give cards. But I kind of think with this one, if he does that, it could get really nasty to the extent where he'll have to control it by means of giving yellows and giving reds. Like, obviously, you need booking points here, 10 for a yellow, 25 for a red. So you need 6 or more bookings. And we've seen Tierney at times. There's a weird game in the FA Cup. FA Cup, generally not many cards in the FA Cup, and he gave, I think, 9 yellows and a red possibly in the cup game between Bournemouth and Leicester a couple of weeks ago. So he's got it in him. There was also a mad Liverpool, who was it, a couple of years ago, where he completely lost the plot of the game.
Well, last year on the show that we did, SpreadX show we did, he was one of the go-tos, wasn't he?
Exactly.
He was top 3, and if every time the fixtures come out, you look for him and see who's got, and he'll be a play.
And then he shaved his head, and it's all been
Yeah, he's lost it. Yeah.
So I'm not sure Tierney. I get that this season he hasn't given many cards, but I don't think he is someone who is one of those guys who over his career is always going to be lenient. I think it might be a bit of a patch, or maybe just a bit of variance off the back of last season. But I think this game is going to be tasty, and therefore I'm going over cards.
Do you suggest he's obviously been a bit high profile this last week or so because of the Nottingham Forest situation? Would you think that's going to have any bearing on how he referees this game? Is he going to try and keep a little bit under the radar?
I mean, it really shouldn't.
No.
Like, I think that the key to this probably is not making a mistake rather than not giving cards. Like, if he were to lose control of the game, if he were to not give in the same way that not giving a red card or giving a red card that's wrong, like, he just has to get it right. Yeah. So I personally wouldn't be overly worried about that. Like, he averages 3.22 yellows per game in the Premier League this season, 3.39 over his career. So, I'm hoping that it's going to be the derby that plays into that. Albeit, over his whole career, he gives 0.1 red card a game. So it's about time.
Add it in. Yeah. I looked at the history and I mentioned this to Dan before the show about there was a game in 2020. Mike Dean was in charge of that one, so it was a Mike Dean masterclass. And I remember Twitter went off because there was certain bets on it that people had suggested there would be a lot of cards in it, and there certainly was. There was 140 booking points in that particular game, so it was absolutely crazy. 75 points in the reverse fixture this season as well would suggest that, as you said, there is definitely history in it. But I just had a look back over the last 2 or 3 seasons, and there's been 60 and 70 as well, but both those were at Molineux. And the 3 games at Villa Park have seen 40, 50 and 10. That could just be a pure coincidence. It might be the fact of Villa's home dominance. And
one of those was a 4-1, I think, wasn't it?
Yeah. And so I think possibly that Villa might win this one, and if they do get into a comfortable lead, especially with games coming up early next week, that might well be a case that the game peters out.
Yes.
There we go.
There you go.
And
that's how to use it.
Noted.
But I think so. Tierney's record, as you said, you've been through his averages. His average this season is 36.39. He has gone lower in 14 of his 18 Premier League games this season, and in 12 of his last 13. So the stats for him this season would suggest that he does very much try and keep his cards in his pocket. So, and I think some of the players that are missing from this, Douglas Luiz, and John McGinn
as well.
Yeah, and having Neto missing for Wolves and that kind of explosive counter-attacking pace might well restrict the amount of potential yellow cards that we see here. So Tierney's refereed.
Still got players will fight.
There are players there. There are players there, admittedly. And let's say it's got history. And I find, again, this was a tough one. I found it a tough week this week. There's a lot of very close calls to be had, but that's why the traders are doing such a great job.
Yeah. Even if we're all over 50%.
Even if we're all over 50%, yeah. Tierney's refereed Villa once this season, showed one yellow card, and that was to their opponent, Sheffield United, on the day. But that was another one of those ones which was a very clear win for Villa. But he did show 105 to support your argument when he refereed Wolves once this year, and that was against Bournemouth. So 45 points for Bournemouth, 60 for Wolves.
There you go. Dan?
The one Villa game that you just said was the last point I've got that hasn't been covered yet. I've purely based it on Tierney and his average this season, really.
Yeah.
I guess to go back to your point, I'm hoping that Villa can get an early lead, and that kind of, prevents this from turning into.
Do you think? I would argue that they need to get like a 3-goal lead.
Yeah. Oh, well, I was going to say 2, but
even
certainly
like 2-0. I always think 2-0 games are still there's still enough spice in there because you've got to make sure 2-0 with 10 minutes to go or 5 minutes to go, it changes a bit.
Yeah, it's true.
But games aren't done at 2, are they?
No. Well, I mean, like worst case scenario.
Famously, very dangerously.
Dangerously.
Yeah.
Very dangerous.
Yeah. I'm just hoping it's not like nice and tight going into the latter stages, because then it could be a bit of a bloodbath. But I don't know. Our man Tierney.
Yeah.
Keep your cards in your pocket, mate.
Yeah.
Right, on to Brentford hosting Manchester United. Spreadex here have the supremacy market as United favourites. 0.3 favourites they are, so pretty marginal. Higher here is a United win. Lower is a draw or a Brentford home win. We're going higher or lower. 3, 2, 1. Backing United.
I am.
Oh, guys.
Strongest pick of the week.
What is it like? I don't know. Like United's away form on paper isn't that bad, but you go through it with a fine tooth comb, and they just played poorly in basically every game apart from the Wolves game. Like they were so fortunate to beat Villa 2-1. They were so fortunate to beat Luton 2-1. They were brilliant in the first half against Wolves in that 4-3 game, and then nearly threw it away. City obviously battered them. Forest and West Ham. Prior to that, they had 4 games in a row away from home, and they hadn't won until that run of 3. And as I say, I'm not really willing to give them the performance level a win against Luton or Villa. I know that Brentford aren't great. Their home form better than their away form, but they haven't won loads at home. But they got a 2-2 draw with Chelsea last time out. And this is just a huge game for them to ensure that they're going to stay outside the relegation zone. I'm possibly my strongest as well would be Brentford or draw. I'm not having the United renaissance.
Mm-hmm.
Tell me why, Jack, it's your strongest.
I was generally surprised. Looked at the fixed odds on this one. United are actually odds against, and I was generally surprised on that. And I even thought this would have been closer to the 1 mark, possibly even needing a United win by 2 or more goals in this one. Yeah, I thought they.
When did they last win by 2 away from home?
It's a good question.
I'll find out for you.
Yeah,
you
I will. Yeah, but I think
Everton away, and they weren't given that game either. They won a 3-0 in November.
Winning scruffy, aren't they? Certainly.
They've won 1. They've covered the -1 once away from home this season. That was it.
Yeah, I think obviously a massive win against Liverpool, admittedly at home last time out, and I think one of the main benefits of that is that it was then international break, because I think they could have well been on a bit of an emotional.
Also, strictly a draw.
Yeah. I would say over the course of the game, the victory over Liverpool to get into the FA Cup semi-final, and then potentially get a very good draw in that as well. They've got to focus on, they must win pretty much every game, I think, between now and the end of the season to have any hope of catching Tottenham and Villa in the 4th and 5th positions as well. So I think some of their better players are showing signs of decent form at the moment. Rashford scoring the odd goal. Højlund's obviously back as well, which I think is important. Garnacho, Mainu we've talked about, and everyone's talked about over the last few weeks as well. And McTominay just seems to this season come up and score crucial goals for them. So I just feel that they've got that in them. Their recent form has been pretty decent. They've won 5 of the last 7 across all venues, and they've won 3 of the last 4 away. Well, they're playing Brentford here,
Yeah.
and Brentford are terrible. Probably one of the worst 3 sides in the division currently.
Really?
Yeah, for me, awful. They're in dismal form. No win in the last 6. They lost 5 of those. They lost 7 of the last 9. 1 win in 6 at home. They lost 4 of those as well. They've conceded multiple goals in all of those games as well.
Yeah.
So it's
Defensively, I guess.
terrible. And I think also one of their key players obviously doesn't want to be there in Ivan Toney. And you watched him again for England, and he put in a more of an Ivan Toney-like display. We've seen him over the last few weeks, and he's just not really looked interested. He's kind of checked out of Brentford, and I think he thinks they're safe, and he's not really got much to play for now, other than a move. And that interview prior to the last game was horrific. And I think, that's just not a good look at all. And being away on international duty with those players that are playing for those bigger clubs on the bigger money, I think also will possibly have a detrimental effect here when he comes into this game. And him not being on it, I think Brentford are playing with like 10.5 men at the moment. So I'm going.
It should be 11.5.
It should be.
Yeah.
Last couple of seasons, he's been the difference maker for them. And the final point is that looking at Brentford's record against the top 6 sides this season, it hardly could be worse. And when they came into the Premier League, they were the side that bloodied the big sides' noses. That first game against Arsenal set the tone. They did a double over Manchester City, didn't they? And they've given tough games to all those sides. This season, they've played 10 games against the top 6 so far. They've drawn 1 and lost 9. And that draw was in the first game of the season against Tottenham, which was a bit of a crazy game. And since then, they've lost every single game, obviously including the reverse, again, where United were fortunate. But
Again. Yeah, Dan?
Yeah, United have a few players coming back as well, like you mentioned, Højlund, but Casemiro looks to be fit. Martinez may be back, might be a bit of a rush for him with so many games coming up. So I just basically think Man United have too much firepower for Brentford. I completely agree with everything you said about Brentford being poor at the moment, at best, really. And they're conceding loads of goals at home, 29 so far this season. Only Burnley and Sheffield United have conceded more. So, like, going back to my stupid methodology, Man United are going to score a couple of times, and I can't see Brentford scoring more than once, if at all. So, I'm pretty happy. I'm pretty happy with that.
No. I mean, I'd never doubt you guys. It's just there seems to be so much faith in United that I just still definitely don't have.
I think if this was Man United against a lot of other sides in the division, then I'd wouldn't be so bullish. But I just think Brentford at the minute are in such a nosedive, and they're very fortunate that there are 3 or 4 sides worse, and teams have had points deductions that they're not really in severe trouble at the bottom.
Yeah, we'll see. Interesting. Thomas Frank being linked to the United job as well over the last week or so. So a bit of an audition for him. Going to stick with the same game and look at the Sporty Index line for total goal minutes. It's the total cumulative minutes. Goals are scored in within the game. 165 is the midpoint here. So if you're going lower, you want fewer goals or early goals. Higher, you want late goals and plenty of them as well. Higher or lower, 165. 3, 2, 1.
Hey,
Goals galore.
Dan, you love goals.
Yeah, I do. I do love goals. This obviously copped quite well. I don't know if easily is the right word when you're relying on 2 90-plus minute goals to cop, but they obviously did get them.
But
from
this
Scott
is a huge
McTominay.
thing this season, isn't it?
Yeah.
Their injury time has really had an impact in this market.
Yeah, I was actually reading an article, and it was the average injury time obviously includes first half injury time as well. It's 12 minutes this season in the Premier League.
Wow.
So if you're getting whatever that is, like 6+ after 90, it's a real high chance that you're going to get a goal in that time. We would have been more than okay in the reverse fixture. I mean, I wouldn't say that Brentford definitely won't score, because Ivan Toney even at 50% could still put away chances if he's presented them. United have that terrible shots conceded record not record, but you know what I mean at the moment. And Brentford ranked really poorly for XG against at home. So both teams to score, sort of looking like 165 is quite attainable. Still a little bit high at 165, but I don't know. We've gone quite hard on United winning here, so let's hope they do so comfortably with late goals, loads of them.
Yeah, I think for me it's just the amount of goals we're seeing at Brentford this season. It's not even recently. Like the 2-2 draw with Chelsea last time out, 4-1 prior to that, 3-1 prior to that, 3-2 win prior to that, 4-1. Just kind of, there's only one game, if you look through their season so far, that's had 1 or fewer goals, and that was a 1-0 defeat against Arsenal back in November. So there's no reason in my mind why this won't be high scoring, no matter what the score is. So yeah, I think you've kind of got to go higher.
Yeah, I think my instinct, I've had 2 or 3 of these markets where I've actually had my gut instinct change when I've delved into it a little bit more, yeah. But and this was one of them. I just felt that possibly it would be lower. But yeah, you're right. 3.79 goals per game average at Brentford this season, which is bonkers. 10 of their 14 home games have gone higher, including 6 of the last 7. And it's the recent records of the 2 clubs really that swung it properly for me. Brentford's average at home this season, goal minutes, is 186 as an average, which is absolutely crazy again. So with that amount of goals. And that also includes that 2-2 draw, if you remember, on match day 1 against Tottenham, where all 4 goals were in the first half. So actually that one went under, even though there was 4 goals in it. So a bit mad. United's 37 goals across their away games so far this season, 2.64 goals per game. 5 of their 14 have gone higher, so it's quite low. However, 4 of the last 5 have. And their average across the season is 147. So I just think they're in that frame of mind at the moment. As I said, they've got to go all guns blazing to try and get that top 4, top 5. They've got nothing to lose really. So I think they've opened up a lot in the last few weeks, and it's been a bit like a basketball game.
Yeah,
which I heard from you guys last time.
Yeah,
which was,
nice. Right, 2 more games we're going to cover here. Liverpool hosting Brighton is the first before we get on to the big game of the weekend. Sporting Index have total goals here as 3.55 to sell, 3.75 to buy. So the midpoint is 3.65. Higher would be 4 or more goals. Lower would be 3 or fewer. 3, 2, 1. Easy.
We love goals.
Jack?
This is when I changed as well. I actually thought I'm going lower here, sort of going against the tide a little bit, I felt, but then I went, how can I do that? It's just going to look absolutely crazy. Look, last 2 meetings between the 2 sides, 2-2 and 3-3. And I think one of the keys here is that De Zerbi's got a decent record since he's come into the Premier League against Liverpool, unbeaten, and there's been goals in all those games. So I think we'll probably see a similar pattern to this one. And as far as Liverpool are concerned at the minute, it just seems to be a frame of mind where we're just going to score more goals than you. They've been generally conceding recently a goal and scoring 3 and 4. So on that basis, we're in here, and I think with obviously Salah back, with Diaz, with Nunez, the chances are mad. The amount of shots they're having is crazy. They've also got the support and cast behind them as well, all prepared to get forward and have shots. I just feel that this has got the makings of what you'd expect it to be when you see the game on paper, that it will be plenty of goals. The 1-1 versus City ended a run of games where we've seen 4 or more goals for Liverpool, but Liverpool's XG in that was 2.82. They battered Man City second half, and it was a phenomenal performance, and City did well to kind of hang on in there and get the draw at the end of the day. But 50 goals, 14 home games, 3.57 the average, have scored an average of 2.71 themselves, which effectively, let's say, generally means that they've pretty much done all the heavy lifting we need for this one, and we just need Brighton to get on the score sheet, which they generally do as well. So 4 of the last 5 have seen 4+, that City game being the anomaly to that. So and Brighton's away games average exactly the same as Liverpool's home games this season, 3.57. So happy days.
Good stuff. Yeah, I mean, Liverpool have covered this themselves on 4 occasions at Anfield this season, where they haven't even needed the opposition. When you consider it surprising, they've only kept 5 clean sheets at home this season as well. So, defensively not always the most solid, but recently when you look at them playing against teams who aren't towards the top end of the table, like Man City, and they put 4 past Luton in a 4-1 win, Burnley 3-1, Chelsea 4-1, Newcastle 4-2. Like, they follow a pattern of them scoring 3 or 4 goals, the opposition getting a goal themselves, and that's basically enough to take us over. When you consider that Brighton, even though their games have kind of become a little bit less high scoring recently, it's still De Zerbi. It's probably like a patch rather than a proper trend. And again, De Zerbi strongly linked to Liverpool job, so this is a big game for him to show what he's all about yet again against them. So 4 or more seems the way to play this one.
Yeah, I completely agree. Liverpool have significantly higher shots per game than any other team in the league. It's like 20, just under 25, 24. It's just under 25.
That's why you've got Darwin Núñez in your team.
Yeah, that's wild, I thought. And I just think the matchup, like Brighton are pretty poor at defending on the counter. Liverpool obviously very good. They're ranked 3rd for most goals scored on the counter this season. So that will come into play. You mentioned about both teams scoring. I think it's like 7. I've got it here. 7 of 29 games. Brighton's 29 games so far. Have not seen that. So that's a weird way of saying it. But both teams to score in most games. More than 3 goals in almost half of Brighton's fixtures this season. I don't know. I mean, I'm warped because I love goals and I think there's going to be goals in everything. But the fact that we all agree, you just look at this game and it looks like there's going to be loads, doesn't it?
I think the upside far outweighs the downsides to this. Is it going to be 0-0? I'd be absolutely shocked to bits if it was going to be a 0-0 or a 1 or 2 goal game. So therefore the loss is marginal when we could see this be a 4-3, 5-2, anything. Yeah. And I think the upside 8-7.
Yeah.
And that's just at half time.
Oh my God, imagine.
Proper basketball game.
I'd be worried about him if that happened.
I wouldn't be
weekend, bank holiday weekend.
Yeah. Panic on the streets of Dublin. Right. Into the big game of the weekend, Easter Sunday cracker.
Norwich, Plymouth.
Shrewsbury, Oxford. Don't know, Reading are playing. Man City hosting Arsenal in a title clash. We can't call it the title clash because obviously Liverpool are very much within this title race. But City hosting Arsenal. Arsenal, of course, with a pretty good record recently. Mikel Arteta against his old boss, Pep Guardiola. City, though, still favourites for this one. 0.65 is the midpoint with Sporting Index. Higher means a City win, lower means Arsenal or a draw. 3, 2, 1. Whoa, I'm surprised.
Why are you surprised, George?
Well, firstly, City's performance against Liverpool, not great.
Yeah.
Right? So, yes, they're obviously in great form, but in a game pretty similar to this in terms of what was at stake, albeit away from home, they were, I would say, outplayed and outperformed by Liverpool. Yeah. Then you've got the injury situation. Ederson is out. Kyle Walker went off injured on England duty this weekend. John Stones went off on England duty this weekend. Akanji's gone off on international duty as well. Suddenly you're looking at it being like, who are they going to play? Is Lewis going to play right back? Who's going to play alongside Rodri if Stones is out? Who's going to play centre back? Significant injury issues there. And yes, Arsenal have had some players, Saka obviously didn't play for England, but I think we can probably anticipate the players who pulled out of international duty rather than hobbling off will feature in this one. So that's pretty significant. Then you've got Arsenal's recent record against City, which is good. Then you've got the fact that in those games, defences have been on top, and I think this will, don't want to kind of go anyway on the last market, but I think it'll be a low scoring game this, in which case 0-0 and 1-1 are huge players. I wouldn't be bullish at all that City will get the win, despite the fact that obviously they are consistently dominant at home. Dan, why do you think they will do?
Well, I think this is genuinely a question of whether Arsenal have the bottle or not. And
you question Arsenal's bottle?
Yeah, absolutely. Wow. Yeah.
Are they what bottle jobs are they?
I don't know.
Think of something.
We're getting to that time of the year where every time anyone does anything wrong in football, they've bottled it, and I hate it so much. Someone's got to lose.
Yeah, I agree, and it's going to be Arsenal.
Okay, fine. because they haven't got any bottle.
Well, it doesn't even have to be that. I don't think they've got what it takes to go to Man City, the best team in the world, beat them, and then continue.
Maybe they're the best team in the world.
Maybe. And maybe this is the perfect time to show it. Yeah. I just can't see it. Beating 4-1 here last time. Obviously, they did win the reverse fixture. I'm not too worried about that. I just think, City win these games. That's just what they do. Pep is well prepared. He's been here before. I just think City basically just go from here, win it all.
Arsenal might as well not turn up, Jack.
Exactly. He's certainly more confident than I am. This is not I was very fortunate enough to be at this game last season, and it was a bad time for Arsenal going into it, and City certainly took advantage of it. 4-1 winners. I don't see it being anything like that this time round, certainly, but I just think Man City will get the job done. My concern is the injuries. It'll be, obviously with press conferences coming up, it'll be interesting to see which ones of those will make it or not. As I think you're definitely right that all those Arsenal withdrawals I think will be available for this one. But Stones and Walker will be concerned, so will be interesting to see who does make it. But I just can't go against Manchester City given their record, their form at this moment in time, at this part of the season as well. 22 matches unbeaten across all competitions now. 25 undefeated at home. They've won 20 of those. And yes, this is Arsenal. They've won 64-20 on aggregate across those games. Supremacy of 1.76. But I think for me, just to get a 1-0 City win on side here or a single goal win, I'm going to take it because I just feel they've just got enough in what I think will be a very tight game. I think they will have just about enough to go on and get this. Because I think Arsenal possibly go into this being happy to sign for a draw and get out of town. But I don't think they'll get out of town with a point. Tight. They've only conceded 11, haven't they, in 14, but they have lost 3 away games this season. So I think this will be another one.
We've got another market on this game with Sporting Index. This is the last match goal market. 66.5 is midpoint here. So lower would mean that the last goal scored in the game will come before the 66th minute. And then higher would mean it's scored in the 67th or later. So this is how the game will unfold. We're going higher or lower. 3, 2, 1. Yeah, I mean, actually, I'm kind of surprised because I think it'll be tight. I think there'll be loads of goals in it. When those goals are scored, I don't know. It's hard for me to sit here and say exactly when. But if I think this is going to be a 0, 1 or 2 goal game, then I've got to play the probabilities that the last goal will be scored, in advance of that minute. That's all. But tell me why. Having said that you think it's going to be tight, why do you therefore think that the goals are going to come late? Yeah,
I do think it's going to be tight and cagey. And I said you referred to basketball matches last week, or last show. First one I've missed, and it was a great watch actually. Yeah, so it was nice to be on the other side of it. So hopefully it continues with me back here. But to me, I just think that this is going to be a tight start, a cagey start. I've got it as being a tight win for Manchester City. I think they're going to have to work hard to get that. Therefore, I just think the goal is going to come late. I think it's going to be one of those ones that they're going to have to try and going to get into the game and steal a late winner. A game of chess rather than a game of basketball, I'd potentially say in this one. A late one to nick it. On the flip side of it, if there is an early goal, that means that whoever's conceded it is going to be chasing the game, and that will then open up to the fact that goals on the counter-attack. So either way for me, if there's an early goal, I think there will then be a late one for the reasons that the losing side are going to be chasing it. But the way I generally see it is that it's going to be very tight, very cagey, a goalless first half, a late winner from Rodri, 83rd minute, 1-0.
Always that man. Dan?
Yeah, I completely agree. Like last time out, 86th minute winner, Martinelli, although potentially out this week. And just at 66.5, it feels like, bearing in mind what I said about 12 minutes added on, okay, well, not all of them in the second half again, but you get so much of the game to play with here that it just seems really
half
really
an hour,
appealing.
aren't you?
Yeah, it seems so appealing. And Arsenal ranked second for goals scored late on. I'm talking 60 plus, so most of them minutes will make up for us. City fourth, 25 goals. Arsenal scored 28. So like, they do score late. I agree that it's going to be tight. And I've obviously said that I think Man City win, so I'm not going to be as brave enough to suggest the goal scorer and the time. But yeah, I could easily see a 1-0 City win late on.
City goals very late at home. It's landed in each of the last 5 home games in the league, and it's landed in 10 of the last 11 in the league at home, and in 11 of the 14 in total this season. So I think the shape of this game, just lends itself for being another one to follow that trend.
Well, it's going to be a good week for me or a good week for you guys because we disagreed on most things here, which we don't often do. Thank you very much to Jack and Stan for sharing their tips, thoughts and insight. Thank you very much for taking the time to watch this week's episode of Higher or Lower. Make sure you check out SpreadX and Sporting Index for all of your spread betting needs across sports. Over the Easter weekend, there is a link in the description below for new customers only, with a new customer offer in there as well. T's and C's do apply. And remember that losses can exceed your initial deposit. Check out oddschecker for all of your fixed odds betting needs. WhoScored have all the stats covered for you as well, albeit I don't think they've got bottle on there, I'm afraid to say. But we'll be back again next week. Have a great Easter, enjoy all the sport, and please ensure that you gamble responsibly.